Also, we just discovered that the transcripts that we received from the defense regarding Ron Martinelli's conversations with Mrs. Kelly are not accurate. And so some of them, there are clips that I don't know if I'm going to have to play them for her, but I may have to play some clips for her from the Martinelli transcript. So I just wanted to advise the court of that.
Okay. Well, I understand your concern. She's a lay witness. She doesn't understand hearsay. You discussed it with Mr. Larkin, her legal representative, and I think you said you talked to her directly as well. With Mr.
I
Larkin.
did in the hall this morning with Mr. Larkin present, just so the court's aware.
So I'm not going to address her individually. I understand your concerns, but it's singling her out as a witness, and I don't feel comfortable doing that. And well, actually, the only time we've had a problem with the witness who's been non-responsive, has caused a problem so far, frankly, has been with Dr. Tim, who yesterday, after an objection had been made, blurted out an answer that had to be stricken, and then did it again. And you can't tell me this is her first rodeo in court. So, that was a state witness who caused a problem, and an answer had to be stricken. But I understand your concerns, and we will be vigilant. I'll be vigilant if I'm pretty quick on the trigger for those kind of things, I think, and if that comes up, we'll stop it and deal with it right away.
And just so you know, Your Honor, I tried to resolve the issue with the recordings by sending those 2 days ago to Mr. Larkin, and he advised me that the email that I forwarded to him with the recordings that I received from Ms. Larkin, that he was unable to open, so he did not have his client listen to those. I don't know what the problem was. We were able to open it. They came from Ms. Larkin. I don't know why he couldn't have addressed it.
And if you need to correct her or refresh her recollection, you're welcome to do that with
Thank you.
With the recording. That's appropriate.
Great.
That's appropriate.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. You were all gathering your exhibits. Are you ready, everybody?
We're not, Judge. I still don't have mine. If I could just have a minute to
Sure.
organize. I have a number of exhibits today.
Yeah, just let them know, because then I want to make sure they're available. Okay, okay.
Interested for waiting. I think today's the day we're hoping to break at 4, I believe. I think. Council, are we breaking at 4 today to go?
Yes.
Okay, so
Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. Good to hear it. Ready?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
No problem. Let's bring in the jurors. So if you have to use the audio, is that, Jorge's telling me that's only for Ms. Kelly?
Your Honor, I'm happy to, I think it can be played. I think it's legitimate to play it for everyone, and so I prefer to do it that way. I know that Jorge was trying to figure out a way to do it.
We have Mark here, we have some headphones. You can play the video here and then only she can listen to the video here.
What?
My preference is to play it for the jury as well, Your Honor.
That's hearsay, Your Honor.
Well, it's not the proper way to refresh recollection.
Please rise and give forward.
We'll just go with it. Thank you. Good morning. Everyone, please have a seat. The record will show the presence of all the jurors, counsel, and defendant. We're on the record. Good morning to everybody. Good morning. I just wanted to take a moment to talk to you about something. I don't think I've ever done this before. Not a big deal, but I in this particular case, I really just want to acknowledge some of the really hard work that has been put into this case by court staff and others, everyone from law enforcement providing some additional security, it's cleaning people who come in every night. I mean, all these people coming in and out of the courtroom, just too many people to name and to say, tell you what they do. I don't want to take up time doing that. I've done many, many trials. I've never had one go as near to perfect as this one so far. Putting aside the little water problem that we had before it was out of our control. But a tremendous amount of work. There's too many people to name who have really put in a lot of hard work to make this trial run as smoothly so that your experience is productive. I set this trial for this time period because we really want to, when we pick a jury, we try and stay away from holidays. It's really hard to choose a jury on holidays because people have travel plans. So I wedged this in between spring break and summer break, and once you have summer break, it's very difficult because people have family and travel plans, and then you get into November, December, and all those holidays. So I set it for this time, but there is one person here whose dedication and commitment I really want to acknowledge, and has gone beyond the call of duty. The court reporter is here with us. Her family, spouse, children, grandchildren, are all on a beach in the Bahamas. And and when we talked about it, I said, Denise, let's find a replacement, or a substitute. And she said, no, this is an important trial, and I want to be there and do it. It's like I said, it's above and beyond the call of duty. And yesterday also was her birthday, So while her husband was sipping fruity rum drinks on a beach in the Bahamas and watching grandchildren and children frolic in the ocean, she was eating dinner alone last night at a local restaurant. So really, it's, and what birthday was that? Denise, 34 or 35? 34, right, pardon. She's not under oath. So, we all pay a lot in taxes, and I don't like where a lot of my tax dollars go. A lot of it's wasted. I'm sure many of you feel the same way. But every once in a while, as a taxpayer, it's important for you to know that your money is well spent. And it's been very well spent. All the work these people have done, and particular acknowledgement and thanks for the dedication and commitment that the court reporter showed. So, with that, thank you, and the state can call us next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Wanda Kelly.
Good morning, ma'am. If you would step forward here to the clerk. She'll swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Thank you. If you would come over here, come around here and step up to the witness stand, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Mrs. Kelly. Could you please tell the jury your full name, and could you spell your middle name and your last name for the court reporter?
My full name is Wanda Correll Kelly. And did you say spell the last name?
If you'd spell the middle and the last name for the court reporter so she can take it down.
Okay. Correll is C-O-R-R-E-L-L. Kelly is K-E-L-L-Y.
Thank you. And I see you struggling a little bit with that microphone. Let me see if I can help you so you don't have to lean forward like that.
But I can't hear you, man.
You can't hear me in the microphone?
No, when you were standing back there, no.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
If I put the microphone a little closer, that works a little better for you?
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. Mrs. Kelly, you're married to the defendant, Georgia Allen Kelly, is that right?
Correct.
53 or 54 years?
It will be 54 in August, so it's 53 right now.
53 years. And Mrs. Kelly, how do you usually refer to your husband?
How do I refer to him?
Right. His name is George Allen Kelly. How do you refer to him?
We call him Alan
Allen.
because his dad's name was George. So to separate the two, they called Alan.
So if the jury hears you refer to someone named Allen, you're talking about your husband. Is that right?
That's right.
Now I want to talk to you a little bit just about the background, your background, before we get started with the events of this case. If I understand correctly, you and your husband grew up in North Carolina, is that right?
Correct.
And then you married after college?
We married after college.
And then you moved to Tennessee for a bit, correct?
Correct.
And then from there, you went to Montana and you opened the fishing and hunting lodge, right?
Well, not right away, but we did eventually open that in Montana, yes.
Okay. So, and then y'all had a fishing and hunting lodge there for a number of years. Is
Yes,
that
we
right?
did. Yes, we did.
And you have 2 sons?
2 sons, yes.
And one of your sons is named Matt Kelly, is that correct?
Yes.
And both your sons helped you with that hunting lodge when y'all were in Montana, correct?
Correct.
Now, at some point, you ended up in Arizona. Is that right?
Correct.
When did you come out to Arizona?
Well, we came down for a visit in probably 93 or 92 because I had always wanted to move to Arizona. I read a book about it when I was in the 3rd grade and said that's where I'm going. And so we came down and looked at places, and we eventually bought a place in 97.
And that was out in Elgin, is that right?
Yes.
And you lived out in Elgin, and then you ended up moving over to Keno Springs, correct?
Correct.
And it was the golfing that took you over to Keno Springs, correct?
Correct.
You and your husband, you'd refer to yourself as golf addicts back in that time frame, correct?
We did.
And the first property you purchased is not the property you're on now, is that right?
First property we purchased was over in Elgin.
In Keno Springs.
Oh, in Keno Springs. No, that is not the property we are on now.
And that was a property that had 4 parcels, and they were each about 40 acres, right?
Correct.
And folks that was over in the village in Keno Springs?
The reserve.
The reserve. And then y'all decided that didn't give you quite enough privacy, is that right?
Correct.
And then you traded that property for the property you have now at 100 Willow Cross Circle.
Objection
Correct.
leading.
I mean, overruled. I think this is just beginning foundational, so objections over.
Yes, then we did that.
Am I holding it?
How are you doing, Mrs. Kelly? Are you hearing all right? Because we have devices that we could use.
Well, she speaks softly.
How are you doing?
And
Can you hear all right?
I do all right with my hearing aids if she speaks into the microphone loudly.
All right, well, if you have a problem, let us know, because we have some other options.
Okay, thank you.
Now, back in January of 2023, you and your husband had some cattle, is that right?
In January of when?
2023.
2023.
A month
We
that
have
was in-
cattle, yes, we have cattle.
Okay, and you had that cattle not on your ranch, but over in Sonoyta at the time.
That's correct.
And that's because y'all were having a drought on your property, correct?
Yes, we had a drought.
But you have some other animals that you keep on your property, is that right?
Yes, we have a horse.
And do you have other household animals?
Well, we had horses and cattle before the drought.
Okay, but I'm talking about in January of 2023, what animals did you keep on your property at that time?
Oh, Gary Wisdom would have had some cattle on there.
And that was just 1 or 2 cows, was that right?
I think it was 3.
Okay. And then did you keep other animals in your house?
Did I keep what?
Animals in your house?
Yes, my cat.
Okay, your cat. And did your husband have some dogs?
I'm sorry?
Did your husband have some dogs?
Oh, yes, we have dogs.
How many dogs do you have?
Right now we have 4.
And back in January of 2023, how many dogs did you have?
2.
And I want to show you now what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 114. If I can have the screen. Do you recognize this aerial photograph of your property?
Yes, I do.
And does that accurately depict your house and your property?
Yes?
showing you now what's been previously admitted as State's Exhibit 115. Do you recognize that?
Do I recognize what?
Is that an aerial photograph of your property?
Yes.
And that includes your house, your barn, and 2 pump houses, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And now I'd like to show just the witness an exhibit. And Mrs. Kelly, I'm showing you now what's been marked as State's Exhibit 129. Are you familiar with the outline of your parcel, like what your property lines look like?
Yes, a little bit.
Does that look accurate?
Yes.
Move for admission of State's Exhibit 129.
No objection.
Exhibit 129 is admitted.
Move to publish.
Yes.
Ma'am, is this an outline of your property line?
As best I know.
And you have a fence around the exterior of your property, correct?
Correct.
And just so that the jury has a little bit of orientation, could you show us on this map where your house is? And if you, I know this is a little bit tough, but there's a screen right here. If you take the stylus that's right here and you touch right here, it'll give you a color.
Touch where?
Right here in the corner. And then if you just circle where your house is. Okay, great, thank you. And now could you also circle where your barn is? And there's a little pump house not far from your barn, is that right?
There is.
Do you see that on the map?
Yeah, it looks like right there.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Kelly. Now, you talked about a couple of horses that you keep on your property. Is that right?
Yes.
You have one horse now.
Yes.
And what's your horse's name?
Sunny.
I'm showing you now what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 120. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, that looks like Sunny.
Okay. And I'm going to apologize to Sunny for the next photograph from 120 because it looks like they caught Sunny a little bit indisposed. But is this also a photograph of Sunny?
Yes.
And would you describe Sunny as a skinny horse?
A skinny horse?
Right.
Not really.
You can see his ribs in these pictures, is that right?
Yes. Yes. I'm sorry.
And Sunny is how would you describe Sunny?
He's a 29-year-old horse.
And does he have a color or a type? What do you call him?
A color or a type?
Did you tell me in a meeting that we had previously that he's a red roan?
He's part Arabic horse and part quarter horse, I believe it was.
Okay, you didn't tell me he's a red roan?
I may have called him red like a roan.
Okay.
But he's not a red roan.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's okay, no problem. And so, but you'd agree that he's red in color, correct?
Yes, yes.
And he's got some white coloration on his forehead, correct?
Correct.
I just want to ask you a couple of questions about your husband first. Now, I believe since December of 2021, has your husband patrolled your property with an AK-47 and a handgun?
Since when?
December of 2021.
Yes.
And you'd agree with me that a normal place for him to keep his AK-47 is the coat tree by the front door, correct?
That was the place for several years, months. He moves it off and I don't keep up with it.
At one point, you told me that that was the normal place for him to keep it, correct?
That was in the beginning.
And Mrs. Kelly, the officers asked you, the officers collected your cell phone in this case, is that right?
Yes.
And we asked you for the passcode for your phone, and you refused to provide it, is that correct?
I don't think I remember it. I only had the phone about 2 months.
But I asked you for it, and you told me you refused to give it to me, is that right?
Right.
And you'd agree with me that some important events happened in this case using your iPhone?
Your Honor, I'm going to object again to leading.
Stay.
Your Honor, can we have a bench conference about that?
Well, I think you asked a question a different way.
Okay, sure. Mrs. Kelly, did you and I talk in something called a deposition?
Yes.
And did I ask you for the passcode for your phone?
I think you did.
Your Honor, asked and answered to the passcode.
Perhaps I forgot which question I had just asked when I got interrupted, Your Honor. I apologize.
Interrupted.
All right, well, I think everyone's a little lost at this point.
I think-
Let's start again with the
Sure.
line of questioning. So objection sustained, but let's start again.
Thank you. I think, I'm not sure where we were in the questioning when we, a second ago, but I asked you, and I want to make sure I understood, you indicated that I asked you, you agreed that I asked you in a deposition for your passcode, is that right?
Correct.
And you refused to provide that to me, correct?
Correct.
Now I want to turn now to the events of January 30th of 2023. Before anything happened that day, what were you doing?
Just the normal clean up the kitchen after breakfast, empty the dishwasher from the night before, laundry, just normal things.
Okay. And Your Honor, if I could ask the detective to bring the whiteboard over for me. I want to make sure that that's
Your Honor, may I realign myself to the side to watch?
Absolutely.
Can everyone see that whiteboard? So, okay, you were doing regular household chores that morning, you said, and then what's the next thing that happened? What were you doing just before your husband came in that day?
I think I had finished eating my lunch. I was in the kitchen.
Okay, and did you have your cat somewhere nearby?
Oh yes, my cat's always nearby, but she likes to lay on the back of Alan's chair. So I go in there and rub her.
So were you playing with your cat that day?
I did that day, but I don't know at what time you're talking about.
I'm talking about just as Alan's coming in the house that day in the afternoon.
I was not rubbing the cat when he came in, no.
Okay, what were you doing?
I had finished my lunch. I guess I was cleaning up the kitchen.
Were you watching TV?
The TV was on, yes.
And what were you watching?
It's on the,
What were you watching?
I think Fox News was on. It's on, but I don't always watch. I just hear.
And you had that on what volume?
Probably, I don't know how you say it, but it was probably about 20 or 25 out of 100.
Did you call that a medium volume when we talked?
Yes.
So you had Fox News on, and then at some point did Alan come in?
Yes, he did.
And what did he come in for?
He came in to have lunch.
And you remember what he had for lunch?
Yes, I do. It's the strange sandwich. Peanut butter, mayonnaise, and pineapple.
And just before the events of this case happened, where were you standing?
Well, when he came in to make his sandwich, I asked him if he needed any help. He said no. So I went into the living room and started playing with my cat.
So at this point, you're in the living room playing with the cat.
Yes, I am.
And where is Alan?
He's in the kitchen at the, it's not the island, but there's a bar. It has an opening that you can see from the kitchen into the living room. And he was making his sandwich there and looking at the news to see if anything had happened.
So he's standing there eating his lunch at the island, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. He was eating his lunch at the counter.
You're going to approach the witness? Or you can't leave?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly, I'm going to show you a series of photographs marked as State's Exhibit 123. Could you take a look at each of those photographs? And then when you're done, just let me know that you've reviewed them.
I recognize these.
Do each of those photographs accurately depict either the interior or the exterior of your house?
Yes.
Your Honor, move for admission of State's Exhibit 123.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 123 is admitted.
Permission to publish? Mrs. Kelly, I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 123G. Is that one of the photographs I just showed you?
Yes,
And does that photograph show from the exterior of your house looking at the east side of your residence?
yes. No, it's not the east side. I mean, think.
When you come out the patio, is that the
Yes,
east patio?
it's east. It's east.
And it looks like there's a red circle around two of the windows. Could you tell us what those two windows are?
The two windows to the living room.
And it says living room windows on the slide. That would be accurate, correct?
Correct.
So when you said you were in the living room that day, would that be the area of the house, just so the jury has an idea of where you were that day?
Yes.
I'm showing you now what's been marked as and admitted as Exhibit 123H. Is that one of the photographs of the interior of your living room?
Yes.
And I see two windows in this photograph. Are those the windows we were looking at from the outside in the previous picture?
Yes.
I'm showing you now Exhibit 123C. Is this another photograph of the interior of your living room and those two windows?
Yes.
And I'm showing you now Exhibit 123B. Is this another photograph of your living room? B
Yes.
as in boy.
Yes.
And what are we looking at here?
I'm sorry?
So I see a tan chair. Is that a recliner?
That is the tan chair, the big one, is a recliner, yes.
Okay, and then there's a brown chair on the left. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then I see a letter F through an archway. Can you tell me what we're looking at through that archway?
That is the opening into the hall. And, excuse me, if you go to the right, once you pass that opening, you go out a door to the patio area that we saw earlier. If you go left, you go back to the bedrooms. And also you can see an opening where my office is.
So straight ahead, that's your office area.
Yes, the little opening where you can see through, see the big opening and then the little opening, and my office is right there.
Okay, so the first archway is to the hallway, and then the second archway that's a little bit to the right, that one goes into your office.
Correct.
And then what's past your office back there?
My bedroom,
Is that the master bedroom?
yes.
And is there also a door from your master bedroom out onto that patio we saw a minute ago?
Yes,
So you have two doors out to your east patio, correct?
correct.
And then where is the kitchen from this photograph? If you're looking at the photograph, which way, right or left, would the kitchen be?
Left,
So directly to the left in this photograph is your kitchen.
correct.
I'm showing you now what's been marked as State's Exhibit and admitted as State's Exhibit 123A. Could you tell the jury what we're looking at now?
This is my living room and the opening into the kitchen.
And what is this wall here that has the letter B on it?
That's the wall, the refrigerator's on the other side of that wall.
And is that wall between your living room and your kitchen?
Yes,
Showing you now what's been marked as State's Exhibit 123D as in dog. Where is this photograph?
it's standing in the living room looking into my kitchen.
So that wall we were looking at, that doesn't go all the way through, it's got a cutout, is that fair to say?
There is a cutout, yes,
And is that a counter that is between your living room and your kitchen?
correct.
And then in the background, is that the kitchen that we're seeing?
Yes,
And on the left in this photograph, is that the kitchen island you were talking about where Alan was standing making his lunch?
No, he was not standing at the island. He was standing right here at this opening.
Okay, so you believe he was standing at the counter at the opening?
Yes.
And we'll get to that in just a second. But let's go on to the next photograph. I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 123E. And what is this a picture of?
It's my kitchen and dining room.
And is that just the opposite view? You can see the cutout for the counter in this photograph, sort of in the middle on the, sort of to the right, is in the top of the photograph. Is that right?
I'm sorry, would you repeat the question?
Sure, that was a terrible question. Let me ask it again. So, can you see the cutout that we were just talking about where the counter is between the living room and the kitchen?
Yes, you can see the cutout.
And that's sort of toward the top middle of the photograph, right?
It's to the left of the refrigerator.
That's helpful, thank you. And then to the right of the refrigerator, is that the doorway or the opening between the kitchen into the living room?
Correct.
Now, Mrs. Kelly, I think this is 123H. Is this also a photograph of your living room?
Yes.
And I think we already covered that one, so. Showing you now what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 123F. And is this another exterior photograph from your east, looking at your east patio?
Yes.
And the red circle, is that circling the windows?
Yes.
And the blue circle, is that your east patio door?
That is the patio door, yes.
And then to the right of that, is that your master bedroom door that we talked about a minute ago?
Yes.
So when Alan was standing at you say the counter, is that right? Having his lunch?
Alan was standing at the counter having his lunch.
And you're in the living room, is that right?
Yes.
And then what's the next thing that happened?
Alan said, "Wanda, be quiet." And he said he started coming from the kitchen into the living room where I was, and then he said, "I just heard a shot." And me, being curious, I was standing behind that light gray big recliner, and my cat was right there on the back, and I was rubbing her. And me being curious, I stepped over to my left and looked out the window. And I saw two men with big backpacks. They were dressed in...
I'm going to stop you for a minute because I'm trying to write this down while we talk, okay? So you said that Alan told you to be quiet and that he heard a shot.
Yes.
And then you said you looked outside. You went to the living room window.
Yes.
So I want to make sure I know where you were in the living room. I'm going to go back to State's Exhibit 123B. And can you tell the jury where you were standing when Alan said this to you?
Behind the light brown chair. my cat was lying up on the top.
So the one that's on the right, more
Ye-
forward in the picture?
Yes,
All right. And then after Alan made that statement, where did you go?
I walked to the left behind the dark chair and looked out the window.
And which window did you look out? Let me get the picture up for you of the both windows. And I have State's Exhibit 123H up for you. Can you tell me which window you were looking out?
The one on the left of the TV.
And what did you see when you looked out that window?
I saw two men walking. They were dressed in dark camo or light camo. I can't remember. What stood out was the fact that they had these big brown backpacks on them, and they were carrying rifles.
So you say two men, big brown backpack. And you said rifles, is that right?
Correct.
And what else did you observe? Did you say camo?
The camo, I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly the color. It just happened so fast. The only thing that's blaring is the fact that they were dressed alike and that they had these backpacks and guns. I didn't pay attention to the color of the camo, I'm sorry.
And you said they were walking, is that right?
Yes, they were.
And they were walking parallel to your residence, right?
Correct.
You never saw them walk toward your house, right?
No, because once I saw them,
Let me just stop you.
Okay.
And you never saw them point a gun at anyone or anything of that nature, correct?
correct.
And then after you saw these men walking parallel, what distance were they from the residence?
I'm sorry, couldn't hear you.
What distance were they from the residence?
Well, they were actually close, and I can remember telling you that they were about a football field away, but that is incorrect because I haven't been on a football field in 34 years. And the only ones I've seen are on TV. And on the aerial thing of TV, I'm looking, well, it could be about that far. But that's what I told you.
And what distance do you think they are?
After measuring it, they were 100 feet.
Now, after you looked out the window, what's the next thing you did?
Alan said, call Border Patrol. So I had my phone in my hip pocket. I took it out, walked to the refrigerator where I have the Border Patrol's number, dialed it in, started walking over toward where Alan was, and while the phone was dialing and ringing.
So you called Jeremy on your iPhone, is that right?
That's correct.
And you said you handed that phone to Alan?
Yes, I did.
And where did you hand it to Alan?
At the patio door. It was still inside.
So we're looking at State's Exhibit 123B, and I think you told us that if you go through that archway and turn right, that's where that patio door is, correct?
Correct.
So you handed him the phone while he was still inside the house, and did he talk to Jeremy at that point?
He did.
And then after he talked to Jeremy, what did he do with the phone?
He handed it back to me.
And after he handed it back to you, what did he do next?
He went outside.
Did he have anything with him when he went outside?
Yes.
What did he have with him?
His AK.
How are you doing, Mrs. Kelly? If you need a break, let us know, okay?
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Very well.
And Mrs. Kelly, what do you recall about the AK?
A green strap. Don't recognize rifles from each other. I just know that his had a green strap on it.
And Mrs. Kelly, I'm going to show you what's previously admitted as State's Exhibit 34, image 4637. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And is that Alan's AK with the green strap?
Yes.
And that's the gun he had with him that day, is that right?
Correct.
And I just want to make sure I'm clear. Before Alan went outside, you never heard any shots, is that right?
I did not, no.
Once you saw Alan go out the east patio door, where did you go?
I went and stood in front of the TV so I could not see out either of the windows.
And I'm showing you again State's Exhibit 123A. Is there a TV in this photograph?
Yes, it has a horse picture on it.
Okay, and so is that TV that you're talking about the one in between those two living room windows we've been talking about?
Yes,
So you stood right there, is that right?
correct.
And then after you went to the east patio window, what did you hear?
After I went to the east patio window, when?
Sorry, that was a bad question. When you said you saw Alan go out the east patio door
Correct.
and you walked over around and you're standing in front of the TV, what's the first thing you hear?
I heard gunshots.
And where were the gunshots that you heard?
Very close.
Did you believe that was Alan's gunshot?
Yes.
And how many shots did you hear?
I don't know. I didn't count. 5, 6. That was not a priority.
And when you heard those shots, what did you do?
I just stood there, frozen.
And what did you assume those shots were?
I assumed they were Alan shooting up in the air
And why did you assume that?
because that's what he does when he knows there are trespassers close. He shoots up into the air as a warning, you're close enough, go on.
So you heard 5 or 6 shots, and was that his AK or his handgun?
I don't know the difference.
Is one really loud and one not quite as loud?
Well, they were really loud because he
Okay.
was just on the other side.
So you heard 5 or 6 really loud shots just the other side of the area where you were, is that right?
Correct.
And do you know where Alan was standing when he made these shots?
I did not see where he was standing, but when he went out the patio door, as I was closing it, I saw him go toward the right side of that paved area.
Or would that have been somewhere near the living room windows, or would that be the other direction?
Near the windows.
Okay, so were you able to see him from where you were?
If I had looked out the window, I could have seen him.
But you didn't look out the window, right?
No, I did not.
Okay. And after you heard those shots, what did you do?
Well, when the shots stopped, I just stand there. I'm afraid to look.
At some point you did look out, is that right?
I did. I walked to the left window from in this picture here, it'd be the right window in a red circle. But
Okay.
inside, it was the left window. I looked, and he wasn't lying on the ground. So I said, "Thank you, Lord."
And-
Then I went and looked out the other window.
And what did you see when you looked out the other window?
I saw Alan and his dogs walking down the dirt path right there where his trailers are parked, headed down towards the wash in the barn.
Okay. And is that the direction that you saw the people headed?
I didn't see the people head anywhere.
When you told me a minute ago that you looked out the window, you saw them walking parallel to your house. That would have been in the southeast direction, correct?
Correct.
And that's the direction your husband headed, correct?
Yes.
Did you ever see the two men walk toward the house?
Would you repeat that?
Did you ever see the two men walk toward your house?
No.
Did you ever see them point a gun at anyone?
No.
When Alan went out on the back patio, did you ever hear him say anything?
Did I hear him say anything?
Correct.
No.
The only shots you heard when he went outside were Alan's shots. Is that right?
They were close. I don't know that's the only ones, but yes.
Didn't you tell me in a deposition that the only shots you heard were Alan's shots?
I told you that in the deposition that the shots I heard were very close, so I assumed they were Alan's shots.
Okay. And you don't remember telling me specifically the only shots you heard were Alan's shots?
I can't guarantee that. I can't say that under oath that it actually was the only shots fired. I just know I heard the ones close to my house.
All right, we'll look at the transcript in a minute if that'll help you refresh your recollection. But you don't have any reason to believe those shots were anybody's shots but Alan's, correct?
Correct.
Larry, could you turn off the screen for a second?
Are you done with the easel temporary?
Yeah. Now, Mrs. Kelly, I want to talk to you about some of the statements that you've made in this case. You've made a number of statements, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
You talked to Agent Heredia on January 30th. After this happened, law enforcement came out to your house, right?
Yes.
And you talked to a Border Patrol agent named Heredia, and if you don't know his name, that's okay.
I don't know their names.
Okay. And then you talked to 2 different deputies that day as well, is that right?
There was a man and a woman.
Yeah. You talked to, there were actually 4 deputies out at your house that met up with you. There was a man and a woman, and then there was a separate man and a woman, correct?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Sure. So there were quite a few deputies at your house that day, right?
What time?
At the first occasion that the deputies came to your house, there were a number of them, correct?
At the first occasion when they came out, I saw 2 deputies, a man and a woman and 2 border patrols.
So you don't remember talking to a man and a woman, and then later talking to a different man and a different woman?
No, I don't remember that. They probably all look the same.
And then at some point after that, you spoke to Detective Ainsa later that night, correct?
Correct.
And then you've actually spoken to a defense investigator named Ron Martinelli on 3 separate occasions, correct?
3?
Yes.
I don't know how many times, but yes, I've talked to Ron Martinelli.
So you may have spoken to him more than 3 times, is that right? He's been at your house a number of times.
Yes, doing investigations.
And you also participated in 2 separate depositions, correct?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
Sure. You also participated in 2 separate depositions, correct?
With whom?
With me.
With you, yes.
Now, I want to talk through your statements that you gave over the course of that period of time, specifically with respect to how many people you encountered that day. Now, when Border Patrol first got there, you told them that there were 5 people. Is that right?
I don't remember telling them anything.
Okay.
On the number of people, I just told them where the people had been walking.
So I'll show you a copy of the agent's report about what you said to him, and we'll see if that refreshes your recollection, okay?
Okay.
Your Honor, I'm going to object using someone else's report as a reflection to refresh her memory. She wants to state it, but she's not the author of this report, and that officer wrote the report, and so I don't know how that's going to help her. That's just what he wrote.
Well, we'll see whether it helps her or not. The objection's overruled. Anything can be shown to a witness for purposes of refreshing recollection. So the objection's overruled. All right, so we're going to follow the proper procedure for this. You can show the witness whatever it is you want to show her, the things you've identified for purposes of trying to refresh her recollection. And you're going to retrieve those exhibits and ask the questions.
Show me what's been marked as State Exhibit 53, and if you could take a look at the first paragraph here of Agent Heredia's report.
And Mrs. Kelly, the witness, when you're done reviewing that, just tell us that you're done reviewing it, okay? Thank you.
Yes. I'm finished.
Has that refreshed your memory?
No,
So you don't remember talking to Agent Heredia that day?
I do not.
And then you spoke with one of the deputies that day as well, or you said you recalled speaking to at least 2 deputies, is that right?
I remember there was a man and a woman, deputies there, and 2 border patrols.
I'm going to show you now what's been marked as State's Exhibit 1. And this is Deputy Castaneda's report. And if you could start with this paragraph here and read the last 2 paragraphs.
Same procedure, okay?
I'm finished.
And has that refreshed your recollection?
No, I don't remember any of that conversation either.
You don't remember how many people you told the deputies you saw that day?
I saw 2, that's what I told them.
But you don't remember telling the deputies something different?
No.
I'm going to show you now what's been marked as State's Exhibit 1.6. This is Deputy Monreal's report. And could you look at paragraph number 4, please?
finished.
And does that refresh your memory?
No, I do not remember that conversation at all.
You remember telling the deputies 2 people, is that what you said?
2 people.
And that's what you told the agent as well?
That's what I told you mean the Border Patrol agents?
Right.
Yes.
So you
I
believe,
saw 2.
you believe you told them all you saw 2 people?
That's correct.
And so if they all have something different, if they all say you said 5, then they've all gotten it wrong?
Yes, because I saw 2. Alan said he saw 1. Now, I don't know how the 5 came into that.
Okay. And so you don't know how Agent Heredia, Deputy Bonreal, and Deputy Castaneda all got a number of 5 from you?
I do not know how they got that number.
But you'd agree with me that that's what their reports indicate, correct?
Yes.
I'm having a little trouble with my computer, Your Honor, if I could have 50 seconds.
And would you say that the men you saw, were they all armed?
The 2 men I saw were armed.
And you'd agree with me that you told Deputy Castaneda that they weren't, that not all of them were armed, correct?
I don't know about anyone but the last 2. I don't know how these deputies got 5. I don't know how I never saw 5.
Do you recall telling Deputy Castaneda that not all of the people were armed?
It was in his transcript, but I do not remember telling him that because I never saw but 2.
But you'd agree that that's what his report indicates, correct?
That is what his report said.
Now, you also talked to Detective Ainza that night, and we'll talk about the events in between a little later, but I want to talk about the statement that you gave to Detective Ainza. Now, Detective Ainza, you did tell him 2 men with huge backpacks, is that right?
Correct.
And what kind of weapons did you tell him that you observed?
They had rifles because they were long, not pistols.
But you told him something specific, didn't you?
That they were carrying them in front of themselves parallel to the ground.
Did you tell him what type of weapons specifically?
I don't know specifically. I just know it's a rifle.
Do you recall telling Detective Ainza that they were carrying those AK-47 things?
I probably told him they could have been carrying them because I don't know the difference from a distance. A rifle, a BB gun, or an AK.
Mrs. Kelly, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 16. Could you turn to page 5, please? It's the transcript of Detective Ainza's interview.
I'm on page 5.
And could you go to lines 3 through 20 and read those?
I'm finished.
Okay, and was that accurate, Mrs. Kelly? Did you tell Detective Ainsa that they were carrying those AK-47 things?
I said they were like AK-47 things because they're a long rifle. Yes, in that report I did say it's like AK-47.